Alright, so we're ready to cook. My pork chops are nice and dry. I have everything I need to cook ready to go here in place. And the term for that is called mise en place in French. It means everything in its place. So you're not rushing to grab something in the middle of cooking and then finding out you don't have it. So I've got a large skillet for these tomahawk pork chops. A normal skillet, normal pork chops, I would still use a pretty big skillet if I was doing multiple. This is the biggest skillet I have. It's about 14 inches, and it's going to do its best for these massive pork chops here. When you're purchasing pork chops and you're trying to get the juiciest, most tender pork chop, you want to buy them on the bone. They're going to have more flavor that way. And I want to go thick. I want to go at least an inch up to an inch and a half when I purchase my pork chops in terms of thickness, because that's going to prevent them from getting overcooked too easily. So these are about an inch and a quarter. That's what they had. And that gives us enough thickness to put a thermometer in also. Thin cut pork chops, you don't really have to worry about undercooking them, because as soon as you get any color on them on both sides, they're already over the minimum temperature that they need to be. So I'm going to cook at medium-high heat, so I'm going to turn my flame on. And medium-high is halfway between the middle of your dial and the high setting. So that's all you need to do is find the middle and then go halfway between that and high. This is going to take probably 3 to 4 minutes to actually heat up the pan, and I want to let it do that so that when I put the meat in, it gets that nice sear. You don't want to put meat into a cold pan. You're going to end up overcooking your meat that way without browning it. So these guys probably will cook in a little bit of olive oil. So I'm just going to add a drizzle, and then we'll roll that around the pan so that it just coats the bottom of the pan. As it heats up, it'll be more fluid and spread out a little bit more. So I've still got my raw tongs here for moving them to the pan. I have my probe thermometer or instant read thermometer for checking their temperature for doneness. I've got a little bit of butter to finish the cooking and make a little pan sauce. That's totally optional. I'm probably going to use about 2 tablespoons for the 2 pork chops together. And it just like glazes them when they're done, and it's almost like a pan sauce. And then I have a second set of tongs, which is for my cooked pork chop, to remove it from the pan and to turn them after they've been cooking. What else do I have? I think that's all I need. So to tell if your pan is hot enough, I'm just going to hold my hand about an inch off the surface of the pan. I don't want to touch it, but I want to feel heat radiating from that pan if I'm searing something to create a nice brown crust. And I'm not feeling it hot now. I'm feeling it barely any warmth. So that means the pan is not hot enough. It should be coming up to meet my hand. And the oil will shimmer at that temperature, and you might even get a little bit of a smoke coming off the pan, which is okay. That being said, don't leave the pan unattended ever, and you don't want to preheat it more than 5 minutes because the pan can get too hot. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to let that go a little bit more. Over on the counter, I have a cutting board that I'm going to rest the meat on and a sheet of aluminum foil to drape them with after they come out of the pan. And for a steak chop like this, we just want to let them rest for about 5 minutes before we cut into them so the juices don't run out. It actually allows the meat to kind of reabsorb the juices into the meat fibers and stay with the meat so it stays moist and tender as you're eating it. If you ever cut into a steak right after it comes off the grill, you're going to have a puddle of all the flavorful juices on the plate and not in the meat that you're eating. So we always rest thick cuts of meat like that. Alright, when I put the meat in the pan, what I want to do is hear a nice strong sizzle. And you want to turn your vent hood on high whenever you do that. And in my house, I have to open a window because my smoke detector is really sensitive. It's not a bad thing. That means that the meat is making good contact with the pan and you're getting that direct browning action. Just going to let this go a few more seconds and then we're going to go in. And I'm a little hesitant to think these are actually going to fit in there, but we'll see. The other way you can check if your pan is ready, I'll show you. You're going to flick a drop of water into the pan. So I just got a drop of water on my hand, and I'm going to put it in there. And if I don't hear that water sizzle right away, then I know my pan is not hot enough. So this needs to go a little more preheating. Let it go a little bit longer. Don't be afraid of your vent hood. That's what it's for. It's going to pull all of that smoke and steam from searing up into the vent hood. Nice to have one if it vents to the outdoors. If yours recirculates it back into the kitchen, you definitely want to open a window when you're doing any kind of strong, high heat searing type cooking or stir fry or anything like that. All right. So that time I heard the sizzle. It's snapping at me, that means it's ready to go. All right, so here we go. Once I put it down, I don't want to move it. I want to keep it in place so that it's making that good contact. So I'm going to put it down on one side of the pan, give it a little press so it's making good contact, and then I'm going to leave it alone for a couple of minutes. This one I'm going to do the opposite direction. All right, and these are now no man's land. They need to go into the sink or the dishwasher to be washed and sanitized because they both had contact with raw pork, which is a possible contaminant of food poisoning.